Samanta Chakavalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Saddhammang Munirajasa Sunanto Saghamokkhadang Dhamma savana kalo ayang badanta Dhamma savana kalo ayang badanta Dhamma savana kalo ayang badanta Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Amma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato Amma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato Amma sambuddhassa Etang santang etang panitang yadidhang sabba sankhara samato sabbhopadi patinissaggo tanhakkayo nirodho nibbhananti. This is peaceful, this is excellent, the stilling of all preparations, relinquishment of all assets, the destruction of craving, detachment, cessation, extinction. First of all, I pay homage to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha with the permission of Most Venerable Maha Sangha who are gathered here. Let me start today's Dhamma discourse. Much merits for Ananda Banteji and all the other Most Venerable Bhikkhu Bantes for giving me this opportunity to do this Dhamma discourse. Very good morning for all the devotees, upasakas and upasikas. Let me start today's Dhamma discourse with one of Buddha's advice, Buddha's saying. Buddha says in the Tripitaka, in one discourse, Dhammo sada samang natti etang pivata bhikkhavo. Meaning is, there's no medicine in this world like Dhamma. Therefore, monks, you may consume it, you may drink it. So Buddha compared Dhamma to a medicine. Medicine, we know, is to cure diseases. What is the greatest disease in the world? Buddha, in one discourse, it says, Jigacha Paramaroga. And moreover, the most heinous disease is avijja. So if you eradicate avijja, then only we can attain the nibbana. So Buddha, in some discourses, were recognized as a physician, the foremost physician of the world. Sallakatto anuttaro, the foremost surgeon of the world, who would uproot the arrow of avijja from the minds of the people and cure their disease for the good, which is, in other words, the nibbana. So Buddha is at times recognized as a physician. So this physician, dear Dhamma friends, if he's a physician, he should give this medicine to the world. The medicine is Dhamma. So hearing this, one would doubt that whether Buddha distributed this medicine equally to all the people. Because in conventional world, there are so many discriminations. Some are called high caste people, some are called low caste, Some are recognized as wealthy people, some are poor, some are high class people, some are low class people, some are very high professionals, some are not so. So many distinctions. But you would doubt whether Buddha too followed these distinctions when giving up, when preaching this Dhamma. Not only in today's world, Dhamma friends, in ancient world also, when the Buddha was alive, so many people had this doubt whether Buddha follows some traces of discrimination when preaching Dhamma. In order to answer this question, dear Dhamma friends, I selected one Dhamma discourse today from Sangyukta Nikaya, Salayatana Vagga, Bhamani Sangyukta. The name of the discourse is KHETTUPAMA Sutta. What is the name? KHETTUPAMA Sutta. In Pali, Khetta means field, the paddy field. Upama means example. The simile of the field is the English interpretation of this title. This is a beautiful sutta with two great examples of the Buddha. And there's a conventional side of this sutta, and there's a philosophical side of this sutta. So if you want to grab this essence well, you have to listen it well. So now leave behind all the problems in your mind which you have taken from the home. Leave it aside. Just forget about the future. Future has not yet arisen. We are not sure whether it would come or not. And forget about all the past things that you have confronted with so far. Because no point of thinking about them too much. It's all gone. Now come to the present. Now you are here, this Dhamma hall. Now let's start. Dear Dhamma friends, when Buddha was alive, when Buddha was living in Nalanda, the Pavarika's mango grove, one person called Asibandaka Putta Gamani, his name is Gamani, he came to the Buddha and worshipped and sat aside. And he asked a question, a particular question from the Buddha. The question is this: Venerable Sir, does not the Buddha live compassionate toward all the living beings? What's the question? Does not the Buddha live compassionate towards all the living beings? This question is somewhat negative. Does not the Buddha live compassionate towards all living beings? Hearing this, the Buddha said, yes, Gamini, the Tathagata, the Buddha, live compassionate towards all the living beings. Having received this answer, Dhamma friends, Gamini asked another question. If so, then why, Venerable Sir, the Buddha teaches his Dhamma thoroughly to some people and not so thoroughly to some other people? What's the question? If the Buddha is living compassionate towards all the living beings, then why the Buddha teach his Dhamma so thoroughly to some people, some group of people, and not so thoroughly to some other group of people? In some simple terms, dear devotees, is asking, if Buddha have the same compassion towards all the living beings, why does he teach his Dhamma well to one group of people and not so well to the other group of people? Why? Okay, hearing this question, what came to your mind, dear Dhamma friends? Is it a negative interpretation or a positive interpretation? That is a negative interpretation. Because this person is under impression that Buddha follows one sort of discrimination in giving his Dhamma teachings. He was under impression because this society is a caste-ridden society. High caste people are treated in one way, and low caste people are underprivileged, not so well treated. So he thought the same way towards the Buddha, and he thought Buddha is giving good teachings, very good, very well. That means very deep teachings to the high caste people, and very lofty teachings for the low caste people. So under this impression, he asked this question. So the Buddha, dear Dhamma friends, without giving a direct answer to this question, he raised a counter question from this Gamani. Buddha says, okay then Gamani, let me ask you one question. So you answer me as you fit. What did the Buddha ask? Buddha asked, suppose Gamani, here there's a farmer who has three paddy fields. One is with excellent quality. The quality of this paddy field is very excellent. The soil is excellent for the crops. And the other one is of middling quality. Middling quality means not so good, not so bad. And the other paddy field, third one, is of very low quality, which is salty, rough, and not so good for sowing seeds. So this farmer has these three kind of paddy fields. Having prepared these three paddy fields accordingly, Yagamani, Buddha says, if this farmer wishes to sow seed means spread the seeds, to which paddy field he would first sow seed according to your mind? Is it the paddy field with excellent quality? Or is it the paddy field with middling quality? Or is it the paddy field with very low quality, which is salty and rough? What do you think, Gamani? Then the Gamani said, Venerable Sir, that farmer would first, in my opinion, would first sow seed in the field which is of excellent quality. Having sown there, then he would consider of sowing seed in the field which is of middling quality. Having sown seed there, this farmer might or might not, remember the word, might or might not sow seed in that field which is of very low quality. Why? What is the reason? Because the harvest you reap from even from this very low quality field can be used as the fodder for the cattle. That means some feeding some food for the cows. Do you understand this example? So this farmer has three kind of paddy fields. One is excellent quality, one is of middling quality, one of very low quality. Before sowing seed, he would first sow seed to the excellent field, because the result of this crops he would reap from this field, the harvest, will be excellent. And the middling quality paddy field, dear Dhamma friends, that harvest also will be somewhat excellent. But the field of the very low quality, what could be the nature of the harvest? It would be much low, very low quality. But still, there would be some harvest. So it will not in vain, because that harvest also could be utilized as the fodder for the cattle. So having heard that, dear Dhamma friends, Buddha said, just like that, Gamani, just like the field which is of excellent quality are my bhikkhus and bhikkhunis in this sasana. I teach them the Dhamma, which is excellent in the beginning, which is excellent in the middle, which is excellent in the end. Adi Kalyanang, Majje Kalyanang, Paryosana Kalyanang. Those are the very words of the Buddha. The Buddha said, I teach them, I teach those bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. I reveal those bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, the extremely pure and salvific path of Nibbana. Why? What is the reason? Because they consider me, they consider the Buddha as their refuge. They consider the Buddha as their shelter. They consider the Buddha as their island. They consider the Buddha, they consider me as their protector. That is why. Having said that, dear Dhamma friends, Buddha said, you mentioned, Gamini, there's a paddy field of middling quality. Just like the paddy field of middling quality are the lay upasakas and upasikas to me. I teach them too the same Dhamma, which is excellent in the beginning, which is excellent in the middle, which is excellent in the end. I teach them the pure and excellent life of brahmacharya, which leads to the Nibbana. Why? What is the reason? Because they too consider me as their refuge. They too consider me as their island. They too consider me as their protector. That is why. Then comes to the third part. This is the important part. Buddha says, dear Gamini, just like the paddy field, which is of very low quality, with salty and rough ground, are like all the sramanas, brahmanas, and ascetics of other religions, other castes to me. To the astonishment of the Gamini, Buddha says, dear Dhamma friends, to them too, Gamini, I teach the Dhamma, which is excellent in the beginning, which is excellent in the middle, which is excellent in the end. I reveal them the excellent and pure sasana brahmacharya, which leads to the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Why? What is the reason? But here, Dhamma friends, Buddha does not mention that. They consider the Buddha as their refuge. He didn't mention that they consider the Buddha as their island. The Buddha did not mention that they consider the Buddha as their protector. Why? Because they are other religious followers. But for them, Buddha too preached the same Dhamma. No difference, no discrimination. And Buddha says, why do I do so? Because having heard my Dhamma, at least if they understand one sentence of Dhamma, one word of Dhamma, one word, one sentence of this supreme salvific Nibbana-oriented Dhamma, that would lead for them for good and welfare for the long time, for a very long time. Digarattang hitaya sukhaya sangvattati. Those are the very words of the Buddha. Because Buddha thought, if they understand at least as one sentence of this my Dhamma preaching, it would lead for their welfare and happiness for a very long time. So, having heard this, dear Dhamma friends, this Asibandaka Gamini, his doubts decreased 50%, but not completely. Then Buddha takes another example. This is more deeper example. Listen carefully. Then Buddha says, Dhamma friends, Gamini, you imagine there's a person who has 3 clay pots, 3 clay water pots in his home, at his home. What is their nature? The first one is without cracks in his wall, which does not let the water seep through and escape. The second one is also without cracks, but it lets the water seep through and escape. But the third one is with cracks, which lets the water seep through and escape. Do you understand what is the meaning of seep through? That means leakage. What leaking? Then Gamani, Buddha says, okay, suppose that man wants to store water in these 3 water pots. What do you think, Gamani? In which water pot he would first fill water? Whether it is the water pot which has no cracks and which does not let the water seep through and escape, or in the water pot which has cracks, which does not has cracks, but which lets the water seep through and escape, or in the water pot which has cracks, which is with cracks, and which lets the water seep through and escape. Having heard that, Gamani says to the Buddha, Venerable Master, if that man wants to store water, in my opinion, he would first store water in the water pot, which is without cracks and which would not let the water seep through and escape. Having filled water there, having stored water there, then he would move to the second water pot, which with no cracks, but let the water seep through and escape. Having filled water, having stored water there, remember this word. He says, he might or might not fill water in this third water pot, clay pot, which is with cracks, which lets water seep through and escape. Why? What is the reason? Why? What is the reason for storing water in the third water pot? Still he knows that there are cracks. Still he knows that there are chances to water seeping through and escape. But still he keeps some water. Why? Because at the end of the day, if it remains some water, that water can be used to wash dishes. At least it can be used to wash dishes. That is why. Having heard that, Buddha says, dear Dhamma friends, to the Gamani, Gamani, just like the water pot, which has no cracks, which does not let the water seep through and escape, are bhikkhus and bhikkhunis to me. I teach them the Dhamma, which is excellent in the beginning, which is excellent in the middle, which is excellent in the end. I reveal them the supreme and pure, the sasana brahmacharya, which is salvific and which is leading to the nibbana. For what reason? Because they consider me as their refuge. They consider me as their shelter. They consider me as their island. They consider me as their protector. That is why. And also, Gamani, just like the water pot, which has no cracks, but it lets the water seep through and escape, are the lay upasakas and upasikas to me. For them too, I teach the same Dhamma, which is excellent in the beginning, which is excellent in the middle, which is excellent in the end. I reveal them the supremely pure sasana brahmacharya, which leads to the nibbana. Why? What is the reason? They too consider me as their protector. They too consider me as their island. They too consider me as their refuge. They too consider me as their shelter. And also, Gamani, just like the water pot, which has cracks, which also lets the water seep through and escape, are the all others, Brahmans, Sramanas, and all the non-Buddhist ascetics to me, to the astonishment of this Gamani. The Buddha says, Gamani, to them too I teach the same Dhamma, which is excellent in the beginning, Adi Kalyanam, which is excellent in the middle, Majje Kalyanam, which is excellent in the end, Paryosana Kalyanam. I teach them the Sasana Brahmacharya, which is pure and excellent, which is salvific and Nibbana oriented. For what reason? Here also Buddha did not mention that they also consider Buddha as their refuge, shelter, island, or the protector. No. What Buddha says here also, why Gamini, I teach them the same Dhamma. I reveal them the same Sasana Brahmacharya with no difference, with no discrimination, with no exception. Why? Because having heard my Dhamma, if they remember at least one sentence of Dhamma, which is of the quality of Vimukti, Vimukti Rasa, savor of Vimukti, it would lead to them for their welfare and happiness for a very long time. Remember the words, Digarattang Hitaya Sukhaya Sangvattati. That is why I teach them. Okay, having heard that, my friends, this Gamini's mind became so peaceful, so delighted. Why? What was his early impression? The Buddha has some discrimination in teaching Dhamma. Okay, what do you think, Dhamma friends? What can we learn from this sutta? In Buddhist teaching, in the Buddhist dispensation, in Buddha's dispensation, from the Buddha to the most junior member of the Sangha, when they are preaching Dhamma, they have no any discrimination. They have no caste. They have no religious discrimination, ethnic discrimination, class discrimination, nothing. Why? Why Buddha said that we should not consider them? Because the human was born. When he was born, there's no caste, there's no class, there's no wealth, nothing. All are equal. Having been born only, then only people attribute caste, class, wealth, and all the other titles for these people. Because from birth we are all equal. Still we are all equal. Just look at this Dhamma hall, Dhamma friends. All are sit on the floor. There's no discrimination. There could be high professionals, high class people here. There could be low class people here, but no discrimination. Okay, this kind of tradition, dear Dhamma friends, I think it is the same tradition the Buddha asked our bhikkhus to follow. It is exactly the same tradition here in this Maha Bodhi. Vadabantiji followed from 1956. He also had, in my opinion, no discrimination. He did not consider any class, creed, wealth, nothing. If somebody asked for listening to Dhamma, he delivered the Dhamma. That is the kind of caliber and quality we should have in giving Dhamma. So, having heard that, this Asibandhaka Putta Gamini said, magnificent Lord, excellent Lord, excellent Venerable Sir. You just revealed the excellent piece of Dhamma. It is like you have turned something upright, which had been long turned downright. Just like you have shown a person the correct way who was lost. Just like you have revealed something long hidden. Just like you have just lighted one oil lamp in a thick darkness, allowing those who have eyes to see the forms. So from today onwards, dear Venerable Sir, dear Lord, consider me as one of your upasakas. I go refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. You can consider me. You can know me as one of your upasakas until my death. So, having heard this Dhamma, dear Dhamma friends, Buddha revealed this this Asibandaka Putta Gahamani expressed his happiness, expressed his positive emotions to the Buddha. Okay, this Dhamma discourse, dear Dhamma friends, called KHETTUPAMA Sutta, which reveals a lot of important facts. Okay, take these two examples, dear Upasakas and Upasika. What do you think about these two examples, especially the pot example? Why Buddha compared the first pot to the bhikkhus? The pot which has no cracks, which does not seep through, which does not allow the water seep through and escape. What do you mean by no cracks? What do you think? No cracks means in their understanding, they have no doubts. They have very, very less amount of doubts because on Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. If they have no cracks, there's a very little chance of leakage. That is why Buddha says there's a pot which is filled of water, which has no cracks, which leaves no water escape. Why Buddha say clay pot? Because our life is so fragile. This life is like a clay pot which is full of water. At a very narrow chance, this life could be destroyed. That is why he compared it as a clay pot. Okay, second kind of pot. What is the second kind of pot he mentioned? The clay pot without cracks, but which lets the water seep through and escape. To which kind of people he compared it with? The lay upasakas and upasikas. Why? They also don't have cracks, but sometimes the water seep through and escape. What does that mean? What is the analogy there? Sometimes there could be some transgressions of sila. Sometimes they must have some little amount of doubts in their mind of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. That is why they are not so perfect like bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, but somewhat okay with the Dhamma. Okay, last example. What is that? The clay pot with cracks and which lets the water seep through and escape. Who are they? They are the non-Buddhist Sramanas and Brahmins and other ascetics. They have cracks. What do you mean by cracks, dear followers, dear Dhamma friends? Cracks means they have some a fair amount of doubts with Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. So they will always doubt about the Buddha and Dhamma and Sangha. And there's a chance of seeping through this water, the water of Dhamma, which is filled into their minds. That is why Buddha compared them. Having leaked some water, but there could be some water remaining there. So this is at least this amount of water can be used to some useful thing. That is why Buddha says, at least if they remember one sentence of my Dhamma, that will lead to their welfare and happiness for the long time. With the same mindset, Dhamma friends, that we preach this Dhamma, we know that this Dhamma we preach here will not be understood fully by all the people here. Some will understand into a fair degree. Some will understand into a middling quality. And some would understand very small amount of this Dhamma. But even if you faithfully hear this Dhamma, Dhamma Savana is also a meritorious state. And if you remember one sentence of my Dhamma sermon today, that single deed, that single meritorious deed, it will lead to your welfare and happiness for a very, very long time. Why? These Buddha's preachings are very, very rare. This dispensation of Buddha is also extremely rare. To hear this Dhamma from the Bhikkhu Sangha is also very rare. So you have this rare opportunity and you are making use of it to the utmost degree that in your level best. That is the importance of that. Okay, taking the three examples of the Khetha, paddy field is also important. First one is with excellent quality. If the quality of the paddy field is good, all the Dhamma seeds that we sow will give you some good harvest in return. If the quality of this paddy field is of middling quality, but with the same excellent Dhamma seeds, it will give somewhat good harvest to the farmer. But to the at least to the paddy field, which is of very low quality, but with the same excellent quality of Dhamma seeds, it will give you somewhat some kind of harvest, which can be at least used for the fodder as a cattle. So it will not in vain. Okay, Dhamma friends, remember the Dhamma you listen in any kind of mindset, at least it will not be go in vain. Okay? Every word of Dhamma you hear has its positive results in the future. So this is the main message of this Dhamma sermon, dear Dhamma friends. So as the people, as bhikkhus, us, and as lay people, you, are in the same path of Nibbana. We are in the same track. We are looking forward to attain the Nibbana. It is sometimes compared our this lay life as if that we are watching a movie. Have you watched a movie in your life so far? Most of you must have watched. If you want to watch a movie, Dhamma friends, when the movie is going on in the big screen, what should be the background? Is it light or darkness? Background should be thick darkness. Without that, you can't watch a movie. So while we are engaged in watching this movie, which is very colorful, and we are preoccupied with this movie, okay, just imagine you are inside a cinema, you are watching a beautiful, colorful movie, and the background is thick darkness. You will watch the movie until this thick darkness is there, Dhamma friend. Okay, while you are watching this movie, Dhamma friends, what if a very, very powerful light comes from the outside? What would happen to the movie? All the beautiful colors of the movie will fade away. Why? Because so long as the thick darkness in the background, you can see the movie. This movie is a symbol of sensual pleasures. You see the artificial colors of these sensual pleasures as so long as you have the avijja in the background. When the teachings of the Buddha, this powerful light, comes from outside and dispels this darkness of ignorance, avijja, the so-called movie, which is very colorful, will lose its color. That is the word in Pali sometimes used, viraga. Raga is the color, viraga is becoming colorless. Okay, now imagine what if this powerful light comes within your mind. What happens to the avijja in your mind? It will soon fade away. That is exactly what happening when you are listening to Dhamma. That is why Buddha always did not have any discrimination towards all the people, be it their bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, be them the lay upasakas and upasikas, be them the non-Buddhist people. Buddha has had no discrimination because we cannot assume, we cannot presume the exactly point where one will understand the Dhamma. That minute would come at any given moment. So better to keep listening to Dhamma. That realization of Dhamma would come at any given moment. That is why we should be so calm and quiet and keep listening to this Dhamma. Okay. Having said that, dear Dhamma friends, without taking much time, I will wind up this short Dhamma discourse. So all the Dhamma that we have preached, By the power of all the Dhamma that we have preached, by the Dhamma that we have listened, all the meritorious deed that we have accrued by preaching the Dhamma and listening to the Dhamma, let us first transfer all this Dhamma to all the deities who are protecting this Buddha Sasana, and all of us and all the people of the world. May they rejoice in these meritorious deeds. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. And also, let us transfer all these merits that we have accrued by listening to this Dhamma and preaching to this Dhamma, all our departed relatives, and all the heroic soldiers who have sacrificed their life, limb, and liberty to the sovereignty and integrity of their country. May they rejoice in this Nibbana, these meritorious deeds, and may they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. And also, let us transfer all these merits to all of us who are living here and now. May our this worldly life become successful. And if we have any spiritual goal, spiritual focus, may it also be successful. And finally, may all of us attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.